Good evening, everybody. We are back for a stream. We've had a bit of an absence. I wasn't actually meant to be coming on tonight, but some things changed, just for personal reasons. So we are here, and I'm joined here by Stan Hope's Away Days, who you have definitely seen on Door on Tour's stream. You've seen him on my stream also recently, and also you've probably seen him on YouTube because he's been releasing some brand new content, really good content. And today we've got a few people joining in. Just comment and let us know that you're joining in. We've started basically bang on 30, so good to have you all here. But yeah, as I say, I'm joined with me by Stan Hope's Away Days. Liam, it's great to have you here. We're going to be talking a little bit about what has happened over the last couple of days, obviously with pre-season, that loss to Coventry. And don't worry, I'm not going to be, slagging off Steve Cooper or anything like that, as I know that some people have. I think more of them are just winding people up, really. But we're going to be talking a little bit about that. We're going to be talking about Nico Williams and Omar Richards signing very soon. And we're going to be looking at also whether Henderson might be coming on a permanent basis to Nottingham Forest after this season. Some things going on at Man United that are very, very interesting. So we'll get back to that soon. So, Liam, first of all, welcome. We've got people just saying welcome into you also. Darryl here, cheers, Kian, Ben, Gabriel, Forest Till I Die, good evening. How are you feeling? Are you feeling, obviously it was a tough game yesterday. You've put out a completely different squad, definitely not a Premier League side. But how are you feeling generally for the start of the season?
I mean, result aside, I don't think that means anything from yesterday. Two completely different lineups in both sides. Like I said, mentioned to you before, I think Steve Cooper's looking at who is actually going to stay in the squad and who's going to go out loan. So,
well, it's a very decisive game yesterday, and I'm going to ask another fellow YouTuber as well what their thoughts on that. Welcome to the stream, Max. I brought you in very, very subtly, didn't I? How are you doing tonight?
I'm all right, mate. Good time. Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
Pleasure. And it's great to have you because now this is Max Goodwin here, and he does a lot of YouTube content as well. Really stat-focused YouTube content, as me and Liam were saying. And a good watch. So if you haven't already, follow and subscribe Max Goodwin on his various platforms. Now, Max, I've just asked Liam how he's feeling ahead of the season, and I'm going to ask you the same thing. Generally optimistic or a little bit anxious?
I do think personally it's a little bit early to make that kind of a judgment. I think with the current squad that we've got, we are quite thin on the ground. But at the same time, with the players that we're currently linked to, it's looking like it could go quite positively. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic, but there's still a lot of work to be done.
So what do you think it will take to make you feel more optimistic? Are we talking, is Nico Williams and Omar Richards really enough to make that happen? Or I think we need midfielders really for me. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, midfielders would be, for me personally, midfielders are currently, after Omar and Nico Williams, are like the top sort of priority. But I think it's just sort of, we keep seeing like links in the press. So, we're linked to Omar Richards, Nico Williams, Morgan Gibbs-White, etc. I think it's a case of getting these deals over the line and actually getting some players in the squad, because at the end of the day, there's links that are all well and good talking about, who was sort of linked to signing, but actually getting some bodies in there would be, I think, getting some depth in the squad mainly. Yeah.
And it's obviously going to cost. Forest on track to spend something like over 56, 60 million kind of region. So a massive amount of money, and kind of money that you would never have expected to be a transfer budget, perhaps what you're selling the club for, etc. But it's big money, and lots of money is flowing through the club right now. And I've just got some messages here. Evening, Jamie and Liam. I hope you're both okay. Max is also here. So Eve, we're all good. I hope you're doing well as well. It'd be good to have you back on the stream very soon if we can. Henny the Hero, I hope you're doing well, my friend. We've got James here as well. Hello, Reds. Good to see you. Or speak to you, should I say, earlier on Twitter. Weather, there we go. Nice weather indeed. We've got Door on Tour. He loves teasing it, doesn't he? It's only, 13 days till we go to Germany now? And I know, Liam, you'll be going as well. He's got the thumbs up from his wife there. So it's all good your end now by the looks of it. Training game last night. Yeah, let's talk about that. It's probably the thing that everybody's talking about, and I'm going to show you a little bit of about what Steve Cooper said after we have this discussion to see how similar it is to what he says. But I'm going to start with you, Liam, and I want to ask, what were your thoughts on that game overall? Are you really has it changed your mind on how you think we're going to do in the Premier League? It hasn't for me, but
No,
what about
no,
you?
not at all. No, I was more looking at individuals. Like, I wasn't looking at Worrell, I wasn't looking at Colback, because they're proven now for Forest. Mine was looking at Lyle Taylor. I thought he was a lot better yesterday. He didn't end up on his back. Like, he held the ball, he passed it off. They're the things I was looking at. Alex Martin in the second half, he's still too flimsy on the ball for me. He's like a Bambi in my eyes. And
Not enough physicality.
Yeah, exactly. And stuff like Smith in goal. I don't know why we signed him again. I know he's good for the back changing rooms, but as a player, he's someone that warms up the goalkeepers that are actually going to play for me.
So not necessarily. I mean, obviously, you are looking at it from a team view, but you mentioned individuals. Obviously, that's really important. Is there any performances? I mean, you mentioned Lyle Taylor, who I don't think will be at Forest for the foreseeable. Do you think that maybe that game, giving him a bit of game time in this pre-season, potentially maybe up his value a little bit? Maybe. What do you think about that? Because they're going to want to get as much for him as they can, right?
Yeah, yesterday he did impress me, to be fair. He wasn't a worldie, but he was much better than what he has been. His hold-up play, and any championship team looking at that, I'd be like, oh, he's done well there. The new signings did impress. Very strong. Obviously getting his debut goal and all.
And Niakhate was looking fairly good as well.
Yeah, he's just strong, and that's what we need. He's confident on the ball, and he's played against top strikers already.
And he can play out of the back really he can play out of the back really well. That's what I like about it as well. And before I go to you, Max, and ask your opinions on that, we've got, look at this. Hi, guys. Great lineup. And he's not talking about the Coventry second half lineup. He's talking about the Media Man stream with Stanhope's Away Days and Max Goodwin. And Ez even says here, hi, what up? What a panel. I know, right? This is amazing. Both of them are new to the channel. And there's 75 of you in now. So if you can drop a subscribe, and also subscribe to Stanhope's Away Days, which is, I'm trying to get my bearings right. It's there. I'm trying to get the right hand for this. And then also Max Goodwin, who is there. So I should say there. So make sure you subscribe to him, guys. And yeah, so Max, anyway, I want to ask you the question. What are your thoughts on that pre-season match? Individual performances, what are you thinking?
Well, I think bringing up what Michael said initially about it being a training game last night, I completely agree. And I sort of echo what Liam's saying as well. It's a great opportunity for the lads to get a run out, obviously, coming back from being on holiday or whatever. I agree with the point on Lyle Taylor as well. I don't want to say he's got something to prove, because I don't feel like he really needs to prove anything. He's been, when he has played for us, he was maybe a more consistent player a couple of years ago for us, but getting a good run out on the team, getting some minutes, hopefully it'll maybe keep him in Steve Cooper's sort of bearings in the season upcoming. But I do, again, not sort of be copycatting you guys. I agree with you as well, Jay, that I do think his long-term future is probably away from the club. I think with the players that are currently sort of being looked at, I think there is a desire to sort of add some depth to the squad at number 9. And I think potentially not quite up to the sort of standard of Premier League football, but I could be proved wrong.
I mean, potentially. I just don't see him really fitting in at. I mean, if Forest are being linked with 2 new strikers, which we are going to talk about. I wasn't clickbaiting you on Twitter. We're going to talk about those 2 new strikers a little bit later on. It's Che Adams is one of them. And then there was loads of people linked as well. It's literally, I mean, we've been linked with everybody, haven't we? But it seems like the links are getting a little bit more realistic almost now that we've signed a good few players. That's just budget-wise, I suppose. So we've got some comments in here. The whole game proved that fringe players are what they are. Last night, the same. Yeah, I think Panzo, and I mean, I don't know much about Mbeso, but I think he's probably got... He's good, from what I've seen, which is limited, but he needs a loan. I'm sure we can all agree on that. Panzo, I'm kind of stuck on this one. I must be honest, because I think as much as I'd love to send him out on loan because he probably needs a loan to get game time, which I think he deserves, there's also the point of, there's a depth player there. If anything happens to one of the centre-backs or to a couple of them, as we saw, later in the season. Could he be that player that steps up? You know, in that whole game, I think he was probably the best player on the pitch for Forest. So
100%.
what are your thoughts on Panzo? I'm going to start with you, Max. Do you think a loan? Do you think a depth? It's a hard one for me.
I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's so difficult. You know, as a player, I would say, yeah, he probably does need a loan, get some minutes under his belt, consistent first team football, all that cliche stuff. But at the same time, you are right that we do need some depth in that position. And especially when you're playing a 3 at the back system, which obviously we did last season, you do need probably an extra centre back or 2 in that position, especially playing in the wider areas where you are expected to do a lot more work, pulling out into the wider areas to help sort of progress play down the sides. I do think there is you do need depth in those positions, but I don't know. It's tough, and obviously with Niakhate, however you say it, coming into the squad as well, you'd assume he's going to be the guy on the left, McKenna through the middle, Worrell on the right. I don't see him getting too many minutes unless there's any injuries, because I think Steve Cooper's shown over his period at Forest that he likes quite a tight-knit first 11 that he then adds people into as and when he needs to. Like there was, quite a long period in the back end of the season where we were playing with changes here or there, more or less the same sort of start 11. So
it's a really tough one, and you present a good point. And Liam, I want to ask you, Panzo, do you loan him? Do you keep him? Why?
I say keep. I think he's good. I haven't seen anything for me to be like, nah, he needs to go. Like he against Hull, he was very good on the ball. Yesterday he was good on the ball. Like it doesn't. There's nothing that shows me that he needs to go out on loan. He needs game time, is what I think he needs. And yeah, but on the other hand, is he going to get it at Forest right now? But,
and I think that's probably definitely not.
Yeah, probably not. No.
So
unless there's a big injury,
which is the worry for me, because whenever I go and watch the game, and I'm sitting in the booth and I'm thinking, right, what's going to happen today? I don't even think of the score first. I think, what player am I looking at and am I worrying about? You know what I mean? It's that horrible thing. Maybe that's just towards the end of the season because we were making that promotion push, and obviously anybody getting injured was a scare, and we did see our fair share of scares, didn't we, with injuries? So for me, I think I'm stuck in the middle, because the worry inside of me that just wants reassurance would say, let's just keep him on the bench. But I don't know what's going on with Liam. I think Liam may have a technical issue on his behalf, or he's clicked the wrong button. We'll let him join in a sec. But we've got some questions for now. Evening, Jamie. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Keith means a lot to me. Ben says Loan and Beso, Ojeda, Larea, Harbottle and Myton. And Harbottle, I think he's going to be the future club captain. I know it for a fact. Really, really good player. And he's got some time that needs to be had playing wise, but he's going to do really well in the future. Lyle Taylor, Silva and Da Costa. Yeah, I think Da Costa, I mean, I don't know what the situation with him is. Xande Silva, unfortunately, we played him and there was the odd time where I thought, he might get a goal, but just not the right player, is he, Max? Like, what are your thoughts?
He had something about him. I think he had something about him, and I do think he's actually one of them players that you maybe do want to keep along the squad. Obviously, I think, did he come through the West Ham academy? I know he's at West Ham for one point, so obviously he knows the country and the league, you'd imagine to some extent, but I think I'd keep him around, even if it's just, making appearances in the cup or something. So like you say, I do think there's something there. And it was, I think he had some pretty bad injuries at the beginning of the season when he first joined. You do feel like coming up to speed, maybe there is something there you could offer, even if it's just 5-10 appearances off the bench, might get a goal, might get an assist. It could make a difference in the end.
So it's just a case of weighing it up, and maybe he will, maybe he won't. Bit, good off the pitch, perhaps. There was one shot that he had, though, that smashed the post, and I was so good because I thought, maybe if he just had a goal, then maybe it would change everything. Maybe he would be.
Sometimes that's what you need, isn't it? It's just a goal, just go on a streak of good form. Yeah, I think confidence. And again, it's the first game of pre-season. Obviously, just happened last night. Like it is a case of just seeing how they do, and there's some big games coming up in pre-season. Obviously, Berlin included, and it's an opportunity for some of the fringe players to sort of obviously make their case for staying in the squad long term.
Absolutely. There's a lot of work to be done. And I'm sure they're all very much thinking about it. Even the people that probably know, or should I say know, you're going to get first team there. Thinking about it, it's Newcastle away that matters the most. Absolutely, I'm looking forward to going down to that and driving all the way down to the tune. We need to keep our strength. We do. Davis not involved for Villa today. Suppose that is maybe due to playoffs. I don't know. I don't know. If he doesn't think he's going to get played at Villa, he needs to have a chat with Gerrard about the valuation, because I don't know if it's 100% 15 million he's been valued at, or whether that was a rumour. I don't know. But
I feel awful for him. I feel so bad for him because he put up such good.
yeah,
Obviously, it was so great for us back end of the season. Villa have, cast 150 mil for him or whatever. I think his best bet out of the club is either them cutting their price and coming back to us, or him getting loaned to like Norwich in the Championship and getting some time with the D Smith, because he's not getting into that Villa team next season, is he?
No, and this is it. But if you're slapping a valuation like that on him, unfortunately, no team will buy him for that. Not a single team will buy him for that. Nobody, because unfortunately, as much as I like him, he's not worth that. And that's the reality of it. Half of that, I think, yes, but 5 goals and not necessarily. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was great at Forest, but yeah. And Patch Adams asked, can we get Davis back on loan with an option to buy? I mean, we do have that loan to use, don't we? It's just a case of whether they want to use that on Davis or make a deadline day bid, which I know that some people have speculated. Maybe they will. I don't. Your guess is as good as mine on that one. But we've got Levi Colwill being linked with Forest again. I don't.
Get him in.
You like the idea of that?
Get him in. I think. I think that would be one of the best signs of the summer for us.
Really?
I know you were talking about like having that last loan spot. I think he'd be the one I'd probably be looking at again, that last loan spot too. I think he proved last season he was fantastic, and he was a bit of an off day on the playoff final, obviously scoring the own goal, but I think he's shown that he's more than good enough to sort of make the jump up to sort of a lower end Premier League side, sort of hoping to push up to mid-table.
Well, I do want to ask the question about loans and my concern about it personally, and perhaps the concern that I had last season as well. I want to ask it to you, Liam, now, and welcome back to the stream. This is Stanhope's Away Days there. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube. I do want to ask you, obviously loans played a big part in the promotion last season. Nobody can deny that. And if you do deny it, then you're probably being a bit delusional, to be honest. And, perhaps if Dean Henderson does well, they're going to play a big part next season. But more permanent players playing a big part this season coming up. But do you think that if we are going to loan players such as Colwill, as you said, and maybe Dean Henderson, as we'll go on to talk about his situation a little bit later on, are you concerned that if we did loan in someone like Colwill, who I agree is a great player, if he did well, would the valuation that we have to buy him for come back and bite us next season?
Yeah, it's happened with Spence, hasn't it? He's played such a part in our going up that they put a stupid price tag on him. And maybe a player that was interested in coming back to us, a bigger Premier League club's come in now, and instead of us getting the gain out of having him play for us, it's going to Middlesbrough. That didn't rate him, didn't want him, and they're getting the gain out of us training him and pushing him. I'm not a big fan of loans, to be fair.
I think there should be some form of clause, though. There should be some form of development clause, because if a player's valuation goes up so much within the time of their loan at a club, surely there should be some sort of fee paid to the club. That would make sense in my view. But obviously, he's not our our player. He's not our player. And people that are moan about Middlesbrough, of course, 20 million valuation is a lot. And I think that for 3 million less, Nico Williams is a steal on that behalf, because he's got better
Tottenham
stats.
offered 10 mil for him, didn't they?
Tottenham offered 10, and to be honest, I wouldn't have paid too much more than that. I think he's worth over 10.
15 max.
15 max for me. I would have said 13 million, and that would be about right for me. Nico Williams, I wanted 15 mil, but obviously Liverpool pushed it up a couple of times. So, and you can see why, because obviously the parent club wants to get as much as they can for young talents that they don't see them using, but no other clubs will, kind of thing. So, but yeah, to even think of money. Yeah, sure.
Can I just build on what I just said about not liking loans? I like loans in the terms of giving players that wouldn't play time to play.
Yeah.
But not in the case of what's happened with Spence. But what you said about giving the club that's put their all into him for the last 8 or 9 months, a fee, I think that would work. But like we said with Panzo and Johnson, in League One with Lincoln, they had an amazing season with Johnson. He scored loads of goals, comes back to Forest, and then that club's forgotten about. That's what I don't like about loans.
And it's quite a sad situation. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And you got to think of the Lincoln fans perhaps that feel that way, like how we feel about Spence. And guys, I will get back to your questions in a moment on the chat in just a second. But I do want to ask you, Max. Obviously, Middlesbrough fans probably they don't really care much that they're going to sell Spence, and we're not going to be happy about it. But obviously, that you've got to feel some sort of remorse for Lincoln because they did lose such a good young player, a young talent that perhaps lots of Forest fans didn't have much faith in at some point. So, what are your thoughts on loans and maybe development fees and clauses? What do you think?
I really agree with you there, and I think you made a really good point. I think Johnson's a really good example. Obviously, Morgan Rogers was the guy who was at Lincoln with him from Man City as well, who obviously went to Bournemouth, didn't really do much. But the point being that, I do think that they deserve a lot of credit for what they've developed in Johnson. They've given him the playing time, and I think a lot of that is down to Michael Appleton, who's obviously the manager there. I think you've got to look at it from the perspective of both clubs. Obviously, like a team like Lincoln, you do feel like they would probably want like a little compensation, but maybe you do something where you then say, we're going to use you almost like a development club, and we're going to send, like, next season we'll send you Martin, and season 100%. After that we'll send you Larson or whoever's coming out of the academy. But Appleton's just gone to Blackpool. I think, has he just gone to Blackpool to replace Neil Critchley? I don't see why we don't send Martin and Panzo over there, give them the opportunity to play under a manager who's clearly got an investment in youth players, has the relationship of working with Forest youth player or young Forest players in the past. I think you do need to sort of build these relationships up with other clubs who are maybe a league or two below you, who then develop your talent. You've maybe got an agreement where then, there's agreements in place where it's mutually beneficial, basically. I think there's a case to be made for that being an opportunity there.
And it could happen. And obviously I know that Will Swan has gone to Mansfield. Tyrese Fawn has gone to Reading. So guys, let me know what your thoughts on that are. And also let us know what your thoughts on loans are as a whole. Do you agree with maybe a development fee? Let us know. And apparently Harbottle is going to Mansfield Town as well. So I think that'll be really good. Harbottle's a solid player. And as I say, needs some game time. Robert says Cole goes to the ground, too much for him. We need to give Costa a chance. He's not with... I don't know. Costa a chance. I don't really know about that one, to be honest. Maybe. I suppose you've got time to try that in pre-season, but yeah. And then we've got a question about coaching staff here as well from Harold. Obviously, Stephen Reed left yesterday. Big loss for the first team, and he's going to be a specialist coach, I think it was. So fair play to him. A good servant, and also a good footballer in his time as well. We'll never forget that picture of him with the cigars, will we? I think Reedy might be coming for the backroom staff. Maybe. But he's got a good thing going with the under-23s. It's a case of, does he want to jump from that to that so quick? Because, these things can be a risk. Perhaps Steve Cooper's got someone in mind that he wants, but Steve Reed's a really, really good coach. I think obviously it's a massive loss for the club, really. I think we need to have a proper look at Iano before we move him on. Yeah, maybe. But also they're probably going to be looking at, if they don't keep him, they're going to be looking at his valuation, I suppose. And I don't know how much you guys would value him at. But it's a tough one, isn't it? What do you think about Iano, guys? Are you keep him or sell him?
I agree. Give him a chance in pre-season, see what happens. Worst is, he puts in a decent pre-season. We don't really fancy him. We can maybe get some money from him, sort of off the back of some good performances. But obviously, at the moment, we don't really have anybody at left back. So it's anybody's better than nobody. And even if he's just playing again, like we were saying about Zande Silva, 10, 15 games off the bench, something like that, it's better than nothing, and it's at least getting some worth out of him after what we paid.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, Liam?
It's pretty much the same, to be honest. It's all about who's going to give the best for the team for me now. we're in the top league, Championship. You can give people that chance, but we can't be giving people that chance against Premier League opposition because they'll destroy us.
And it's also the pressure that you get put under. Like, you know, if you're going to make one of your first proper appearances and it's against a team like Man City or, you know, Liverpool, or you just can't afford to do that, you know. So it's a really tough one. And especially when you're in the Prem, it's like players that you did want to maybe see get some game time in the Championship and perhaps could. Now it's too much of a risk. But we've got pre-season for this reason. And it's not too long until we are in the proper league. Pardon me. So who have we got on the stream? We have got James Swain's joined, guys, another guy that you should subscribe to on YouTube. He's recently set up a YouTube channel, so do give him some support if you can. He's been releasing good videos recently. Yeah, Ez says he'll take a good look at Iano. Love that shirt, by the way. I'd send Mighton to Blackpool and get Bowler in return. I don't think you got any chance on that one, Michael. I must admit, I think they might be a bit tough on that one. If we do get any more players on loan, but we need to add the option to buy, yeah, I suppose. But also with the option to buy, I suppose, well, there's not really a risk, is there? Because I suppose it's an option. It's not mandatory. But yeah, it's only one more loan to use. Who do they use it on? I'm sure they're probably giving that a lot more heavy thought than we are. If Andy Reid steps up, he'll have dual role, first team coach and under head coach. Yeah. Michael says, do you think Pearce could return? Obviously, Pearce left his position with West Ham maybe like a month or two ago, and I see you're shaking your head, Liam. I don't know whether that was shaking your head to that, or what are your thoughts on Stuart Pearce coming back as a first team coach?
For me personally, he's been head coach,
yeah,
and then it's a bit of a step back for me. I mean, he's a club legend. As soon as you get to legend status at a club, leave it at that, in my opinion. Yeah. Like Alan Shearer going to coach Newcastle. I know he did it for that short period, but for me, I'd keep the legendary status as it is, and maybe work in the background for deals for Forest, but I won't put my name out there for that, if that makes sense.
Well, Max, what do you think about that? Do you think maybe it's a legacy that not ruin? You can't ruin a legacy like that, but you could, slightly damage it. Do you think it's too big of a jump for Stuart Pearce?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he actually offers to the team outside of the experience, and I don't think he's got any new ideas that Steve Cooper could use. To be fair, I agree.
And Steve Cooper needs new ideas. I think Steve Cooper's got that youth-focused kind of thinking in terms of the team, also having a lot of experience around them, though, to build them all up at the same time. But I suppose when it comes to coaching as well, you won't see ridiculously old coaches out there. Look at Alan Tate and Stephen Reid, former football players. You can look at some of the other coaching staff as well. They're fairly young guys with footballing experience in the past. So maybe Stuart Pearce is someone that we should leave in the past, but also bring him in the future as a legend. But that's how it stays. Legend outside the club, or maybe, as Liam said, something smaller in the background. But yeah, I think he could be risking a little bit too much, and I suppose that's down to him if he ever got offered it. But I don't think we'll see him getting that, to be completely honest.
It's like getting all the Champions League winners back involved with Forest because they've won the Champions League. Do they get involved with the first team? No, they don't.
Look at United.
They've had the time. Well, part of United's problem, I think, is Alex Ferguson's still too involved.
Yeah, but we've seen it, haven't we? It's like, it's great to see that, a legend of the club who has built Manchester United into the brand and the club that it is today, because it is a brand, isn't it? It's a business. And I think that's also another point where Man U goes wrong, where it becomes more about money than it does actual football. But yeah, maybe Sir Alex's involvement is too much now, and unfortunately, you can't. I don't know how to word this now. You definitely can't treat players like how he treated players, and you shouldn't really. But in this day and age as well, I just don't think disciplining players like that is possible anymore. And I think Steve Cooper's approach to how he deals with players is better. He's humble. It'll be more constructive. Whereas if these guys are just throwing boots at players' heads, you can't do that anymore. So do you think maybe disciplinary wise, that's why
David
clubs
Beckham.
struggle? Yeah, David. Yeah, like David Beckham, and also Sir Alex used to have every bouncer in Manchester, according to reports anyway, on his payroll, and he said that any player that steps in these clubs, I want you to call me, and he would get them in the office the next day and punish them for it. You know what I mean? So, and this is what Ten Hag is doing. He's like fully banning alcohol for these players during the playing season. So I just think that level, I want to ask you your thoughts on discipline with players. Do you think that Ten Hag's quite disciplined and serious approach that perhaps he's took a leaf out of Sir Alex's book is the right choice? Or do you think maybe an approach like Cooper, who's constructive, humble, not necessarily quiet, but kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like just kind in the way that he puts it, what, especially in modern football, what approach do you think is the better approach?
I think it's a bit of both. I do think you need to have a sense of discipline at the club, that there are rules and expectations, and obviously like standards that you as a professional are expected to live up to. But I could sit here all day and talk about why I hate what's going on with Man United, but I won't. But I think Ten Hag strikes me as the kind of person who doesn't look like he really cares what Sir Alex Ferguson was doing. I do think he's probably the first coach they've had in a while. And Rangnick was kind of the same, that he's got his own way of doing things. He doesn't really care about the traditions and the Manchester United way and all that kind of stuff that Barcelona also have. And I think as a coach, you kind of need to set your own stall out as what you want to be and who the kind of person you want to be is. And I think Cooper's probably more the way I would go, with the more sort of constructive, positive attitude, and obviously treating players like human beings, not treating them like scum. That's obviously a really big part of things. So yeah, I think Cooper's approach is probably more on the constructive side and the way it should be.
And Liam, I want to ask you a question that's similar along these lines. For one, well, which approach would you take? And two, also, obviously, the different generations of footballers are clear to see. You're seeing players now that are sometimes intentionally late, sometimes don't turn up for training at all to make a statement, sometimes post things on social media to wind things up. New generation of players, in somewhat disrespectful almost. So how as a manager do you kind of rein those players in? Because it looks like Steve Cooper's cultivated a really good atmosphere in the changing rooms from what we can see. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, as being Forest fans, the way I'd like to go again is Cloughie's way. No one's bigger than the club. If you come in to play for Forest, you play for Forest. Obviously, if you get people like Ronaldo in, he's bigger than Man United. His name's bigger than Man United, in my opinion. So it doesn't work in my eyes. I mean, I don't think Ronaldo should have come back to United. But like Cloughie, what he said about, is it Woodcock? He's a big name for Arsenal. He come in and Cloughie was like, right, you're cleaning the boots today. I won't go that far with a professional footballer because you've got staff for that. But keeping players grounded is something that's needed in this game.
But that's quite difficult, isn't it? Because, all these players are making the step up to, Premier League football. Some of them have already played, high level football in their respective leagues as well. So, it's quite difficult to keep some of perhaps the people that are just moving up to that league, to keep their ego at bay. That's quite difficult. And, it's not an easy thing to do, especially when they're in the limelight and, you've got people like Fabrizio Romano covering your transfer to the club. You've got people like Sky Sports talking about you on the TV, and you've got millions of followers. But people are just commenting in, Rooney for backroom staff. No, don't even. I mean, people have mentioned Cobran. I'd be a little bit more lenient towards that. But if a professional footballer needs to be told not to drink or be late, etc., get him out of the club. Yeah, exactly. It's an argument, perhaps a little bit more difficult these days, I suppose. If it's your star player, unfortunately. there's going to be some exceptions along the way, which is
there's two ends of the spectrum for football managers, isn't there? You could be a Neil Warnock who will swear at everyone and threaten them, or you can be a Gareth Southgate that's too soft.
Yeah, Muscat. As long as you don't mention Muscat in front of Warnock, you're okay, aren't you? You know, but there's so many different approaches, and you can see why the managerial kind of style of Neil Warnock and Sir Alex, and unfortunately Cloughy, because as much as we all love Cloughy, that kind of style of doing things, it's not there anymore. It's not in this country anyway, and I don't think really most of Europe doesn't really have that anymore. And I think managers that try it usually just comes back to bite them. But also there's some managers where they are brutally honest, not necessarily in the Warnock approach, but they are like players like managers like Mourinho, that exposed the whole Man United team for what they were to bring it back to Man United. And he said where the problems were, and Rangnick did the same thing. They don't survive because of the fact that the players make them leave and give them a bad media reputation, unfortunately. So that's my view on that kind of managerial style. But guys, any questions you have for the panel, which is me, Max Goodwin, and Liam from Stand Up's Away Days, please feel free to ask it, and we'll get to your questions as soon as we can. Under Cloughy's, our players would have a few beers and a cigarette before a match. Times change equally, and I'm sure health advice has probably changed since then as well. Why can't we not have Stuart Pearce working in the academy system? As long as you're not asking for him to be the head of the academy, then we're okay, aren't we? Because I think Gary Brazil's done a great job, and I think Forest actually, and this isn't me overstating it at all. I think Forest have one of the best youth coaching and youth systems in England.
That's my next step for my little girl. I think Forest.
Well, are you going Mbappe project?
Yeah, exactly. In the garden every day.
Really?
She's getting up at 5 eating steak.
Bloody hell, that is expensive. So this is it, guys. Liam, the reason he's trying to get to 1,000 subscribers is so that he can pay for this steak every morning, because it's absolutely
so you need to subscribe. There's Wagyu as well, so I need the subscribers.
Top quality.
Well, here's one for you guys then. If you subscribe to Liam, he has to buy a Wagyu steak for every subscriber. So we want to get him to 1,000 by tonight, if that's good with you guys. It will just mean the world to him. We just really want to get his subs up. And obviously his daughter's going to be getting all this Wagyu steak as well. So brilliant. So that's an answer to your question. No room for sentiment. Get the best for the club. Yeah. I hate to say it, but Klopp does it right at Liverpool. The players like his management style. He can be tough, but he's also constructive. And I can imagine that's probably an ethos at Liverpool. Maybe that even Steve Cooper's brought along, because obviously he was in the academy there. And also with England in the under-17s, I think it was. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about Joe Lolley, shall we? Now, he came off injured yesterday, and it's a little bit gutting. And all I can see on Facebook forums and social media forums is, he's past it now. We don't like Lolley anymore. It's like, well, but, in all these games, like perhaps the Sheffield United game as well, that first leg when he came on, people were saying, brilliant, last 20, 30 minutes player. He gave it his all, made some important passes and moves. Why wouldn't you want him? And obviously, yes, an injury is a setback. There's injuries coming along the way. You can see that. But Liam, what do you think about Damien's question here? Do you think Joe Lolley can achieve anything further with us, or do you think that his time at the City Ground is coming to a close?
I don't think his time's going to come to a close with us, but I think it should. He showed last season he's not good enough. I'm not reading into the penalty miss at Sheffield United, but it's all the other misses. He comes on. I know he's hungry. That's what I like about him. But the football's just not there. Injury after injury after injury. And I think Matty Cash probably made him look a lot better when he was playing with him. But he's not Premier League standard. I'd see him at a club like Reading doing well as well. That's his kind of level.
Well, so you're in the Lolley out kind of club. and almost.
No.
Obviously, I can see there's a fair bit of reluctance, though.
I just don't want to be too negative about him. I mean,
Yeah.
he had good seasons with us in the Championship, but if we've got such an attacking player that Lolley is, he needs to be scoring. And I'd say this. I said the same thing about Zinchenko. Is Zinchenko ready for the Premier League? I don't think so because he can't score.
But I think there's, as much as I agree, I think there was more things that Zinchenko did that were more important than goals.
His work rate next to none over
And look at how many
last...
times he broke down that play in the middle of the pitch. You know what I mean? And it's like teams that were getting, back and obviously they were on their counter attack and we had a few of the lads up front. He's always running back and he's always making those important tackles. And you saw it a little bit in Ryan Yates as well. And perhaps maybe Zinchenko has spoken to him about it. But he did a lot more than goals. But I do agree. And I want to ask you, Max, what do you think about Joe Lolley? Time coming to a close?
I think he still has something to offer. I think he is the kind of player that you would maybe want to keep around as sort of a positive influence. I think I don't want to kind of like. I know it's very different, obviously, playing football, but he's a good guy. He does so much charity work. He does so much work in the community and stuff like that. And I think that's the kind of person you want around the club. He's a positive influence. And we were obviously talking about like coaches and stuff like that earlier about, what's the mentality you want to have and stuff like that. I think he's the kind of person who can put an arm around the young players, knows he might not get a game every week, and I would hope he's not too offended by that, but knows that he can put a hand around the players like Might and Brennan, and sort of give them advice that, some coaches just can't give you. I think he's got value, and I think he's a good personality to have around the club.
And I do agree, but you've said it a couple of times with players, on the stream. But I do want to ask the question, how many of those players can you have on the team? Because obviously, you have mentioned and you've made a very good point of having other players, and people have said in the past, obviously Lewis Grabban, having him around was good for last year's strikers. But to what point do we kind of go, well, actually these players that we're talking about, how many do we actually keep? Because they're taking up the wage budget. Some of them are on fairly big wages, for the players that they are. And also it's just another name on the registration sheet that really we don't need. So kind of to what extent do you think we can keep these players?
What sums that up now is we're in the Premier League. Are we going to keep to our mentality of looking after players, or are we going to go for the titles? Are we going to go for put Forest back in the big time? But are other clubs babysitting players? Probably not as much, no. But I don't want to say bad about Lolley, because I do like Lolley. His work ethic. But now we're in the Premier League. Why should someone that's not going to play, or he's not the best player, so why would we continue to keep him? And on his back as well, like I want him to play football. Do you want him to? Do you want to sit on the bench every week, even though you're in the Premier League? That's why I do not understand why Smith wants to be a keeper for Forest, but he's never going to play. Why would you want that? If I went professional, I'd rather play in League Two and play every week than sit on a reserve squad in a Premier League club.
He just wants the away day limbs. I think he wants that. He wants that visit to St James's Park just as much as I do. And I think I think you're right. And I'm looking at some of these questions because I think it'll be interesting to see the squad that we have and some of the outgoings that we have, because we've not really seen many so far. So I think, well, in terms of major outgoings, but just having a look at some of these questions that are in. Sahil says players these days want to be loved, and that's been Cooper's philosophy. The regular one-to-one meetings he has, absolutely. Barbecues, man management, everything. That's why Steve Cooper's done so well, because of the man management for me.
And it's working. It is working. You can't say anything different until it's not. And even then, it's what's changed.
And look at how he speaks in press conferences about the players. The nicknames. People don't take up nicknames as like a big thing, but like They actually really are. You know what I mean? They are, because although, you know, people could just see it as a little jokey thing, like he's getting to know players, he's got nicknames for them, you know, he's just getting, he's got some humour to him with them, and it shows they've got a decent relationship. You know, just watch the videos of him in training, and also the way he talks about them after the game, which I'm going to show you now, because obviously Forest, they lost against Coventry yesterday, but I am just going to quickly put this on. So have a listen
we got
to
everything out of it that we wanted. Obviously, you know, get going again in terms of playing games, physical. You know, lads put some hard yards in, which was important. Did some good bits in the game. Obviously, some bits not so good, but that's to be expected, and there's no worry with that. So so happy with the first half and the returns that we got from it. And the second half was a different objective, obviously, with giving some of the younger lads a bit of an opportunity, and obviously a lot of boys there that will go out on loan or will sort of move on, and that's fine. So yeah, good returns from the game, and you know, we're in a better place than when we came here.
That brings an end to our week in Spain. How do you reflect on the week in general?
Good, very good, very productive. Introducing some new players as well, which has been important, and sort of resetting in how we want the team to play. And obviously, you know, you get going with your building your physical levels and your robustness, and everything that we want to be by the time the start of the season comes. So it's been a good introductory week, and a couple of days obviously before we came here in Nottingham, and yeah, we go back with lots of training in the bank, lots of information, lots of meetings, lots of time together, which I think is important, like I say, especially with the new boys, and yeah, the international boys return on Monday, and we keep going.
So knowledgeable, acknowledgeable, and I think just very well spoken. So you can see he's acknowledged what's gone wrong. You know, obviously he's mentioned the fact that, I say what's gone wrong, I think he's mentioned what they need to improve on. And I think they mentioned, you know, he's mentioned, you know, potential outgoings, obviously loans, people that aren't going to be at the club anymore, giving them kind of a last chance to play in the shirt, which I do like, giving them a bit of game time before they go to their club, because I know that there's probably, you know, they're probably lining up deals for certain players to leave soon. And maybe Steve's thinking, right, I like this player, but obviously he's not good enough for Forest now. So let's loan him, you know, let's give him some game time before he goes. It only makes sense. So what did you take from that press conference in terms of, and yeah, as Lewis says in Cooper, we believe, absolutely. What did you take away from that press conference in terms of, you know, how he speaks, the things he speaks about, you know, his knowledge on the game? What do you think about that? I'm going to start with you, Max. What do you think about that?
He just looks like he's in control, and like, it sounds like a really stupid thing to say, because obviously the manager, he should be in control, but he looks like he is in control of the situation. He looks like he knows exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And again, it might sound like a really simple thing that you would expect most managers to have, but you know, we've heard too many times in the past of managers having players sold under their noses or having deals not go the way they want. And he looks like he knows exactly what's happening with the squad. I think he's probably got an idea of where he sees, you know, 89% of the squad next season, whether that's at the club, on loan, being sold. I think the way he speaks is as someone who has a clear plan of how he sees this preseason going. Not that he was expecting us to lose, obviously you don't go into a game expecting to lose, but he was like, he knew that these players were coming back from holiday. He knew these players were coming back off a 50-plus game season, obviously going so deep in the FA Cup as well, that, you know, it was just getting minutes into their bodies. It was getting back into the routine of things, and that anything else was a positive.
What do you think about that, Liam? I've got a few more questions for you after, but thoughts on that brief kind of post-match press conference?
He's a man with a plan, isn't he? He's not fazed at all by that result, and I'm not. Like, it was a training game yesterday, pretty much. I would have liked to have seen him mix the teams, because there was a clear divide between first teamers and youth team. And that's all I take from that. He's a man with a plan. It hasn't fazed him at all. And he speaks clearly about, he knows what's going to happen. And that's what I liked.
Well, it's good to see that he's calm and collective as well, because I know that although it is pre-season, there will be, you know, fans that are worrying, you know, because it's already been added to the worry of Premier League football because, of course, people are worrying about going to Newcastle. People say, "Oh, we'll just smash them." Let's be completely honest; it's going to be a really tough game, and it'll be probably one of the toughest games we've played. But this is it though. It's good to be optimistic and good to think that. But that's what I mean though. It's like people are worried, understandably, and I know that you're optimistic, and so am I, to be fair. But obviously, there's people that are already worried about that, and obviously, a loss in pre-season to Coventry, people are, you know, running around like headless chickens. But you know, it's good to see that he's calm, and that'll bring some calm to the fan base, I think. Although people shouldn't be worried because it is pre-season, and as you say, a training match of sort. But I know a lot of people have put things in the comments, so I'm just going to try and get to this. Character-wise, and this is what I says, I have to agree with Max, and I think Jordan Smith is kept around for morale. Don't think he's on huge wages. Attitude Year 2012, Joe Lolley is not past it. Still got a good player. Some people don't give him the credit he deserves. Yeah, potentially. I think he's probably owed a little bit more credit, in my view. I think he's been quite important on some games this season. He's showing that he can be ruthless to get the squad. He thinks he'll give us the best chance next season. Absolutely. I mean, he's, as you said, Liam, he's got a plan and he knows what he wants. There were some fans yesterday attacking Cooper for friendly defeat. I would like to say that most of the people that were posting on social media were kind of fishing for people to kind of react to that. I don't think it was genuine, but obviously there will be the odd person. Newcastle will be one of the toughest games we've played in years. I think it will because it's the first Premier League side we'll play. And obviously they're looking at making a couple more signings as well. So, yeah, big game. Did you guys see the Forest TV video showcasing the high-tech training methods adopted by the Forest training staff? I didn't. Did you guys see that?
I did see it.
I watched it, but I didn't really take much detail to it. Really, my main focus right now is what the team's doing. I mean, it's good to see that aspect, and I loved seeing all the background players getting involved at Wembley, but I didn't really pay much attention to it.
Max, did you see it in depth, or are you the same as Liam?
I didn't see it in depth, but I have seen it, and I agree with Liam in what he's saying. Obviously, see where the squad is at the end of summer and stuff like that. But I do think it's nice that they're getting a light shone on them because I do think they played a huge part last season in extracting as much out of these players as possible, getting that extra 10-15%. And yeah, obviously with the kind of videos I do, numbers, I love seeing that kind of stuff anyway. So
we know you like numbers, Max. You don't have to worry. We know you like numbers. And now, talking of numbers, let's talk about. It is really good. So if you haven't already, subscribe to Matt's Goodwin. In fact, we're all three of us are YouTubers. Subscribe to us if you can. There's 107 of you in. If you can drop a subscribe and a like, that'd be great. We've hit 611 subscribers, so I'm happy. But I know more of you can subscribe, and I know some of you aren't subscribed as well. I know you are. I don't really, but if you can subscribe, it would mean a lot to me. So we're going to be talking a little bit now about players that could permanently sign, and Dean Henderson is one of them, but we'll speak about that more towards the end. Now let's look at this man, Youssef Yazici. He's got 25, well, he's 25, 201 appearances, 46 goals and 33 assists, and he's worth about 12 to 15 million pounds. So what do you make of that? He's got 79 goal contributions in 201 games, so you're talking maybe 0.75 contributions per 2 games, would it be? Near on? About that. So
yeah, more or less, I think.
Yeah. So and you know, you're looking at 12 or 15 million pounds for him. It's been a rumor that's been thrown around recently by, you know, I think it's Ekram Noor. I think there's been, or Erkam Noor that's been mentioning it. So obviously, I don't really know a lot about him, but what are your guys' thoughts on potentially having Youssef Yazici at the club?
I haven't actually seen him mentioned, to be fair. I mean, I've been pretty on it with Twitter right now, but I haven't actually seen this person, so I haven't really got anything to add about him. I mean, the goal ratio is at nearly 1 in 4, which is all right. I mean, yeah, that's all I can add, really. You've probably got more stats about it, Max.
To be fair, I mean, I like you, I've never seen the guy before play. I know he's at Lille, spent the second half of last season Spartak in Russia or CSKA. Like, I assume he'll be coming in to play that number 10 role that Zinkernagel played last season. And to be fair to him, if you look at his numbers on like something like FB Ref, what he does defensively is actually pretty good for a player who plays as like a number 10. I would worry though that he doesn't offer a huge amount on the ball. Like, he's obviously, his goal numbers and his assists are still pretty good, and I think it was 8 and 10 for CSK last season. But he doesn't move the ball that well. He dribbles a bit, but he doesn't move the ball too well. And I would maybe want somebody in that position who is sort of like helping link attack and defense. Midfield and attack a little bit better. At 10, 15 million though, it's not that bad. I think there's worse deals you could have. And if he was coming in as a squad option, I think that's fine. But he wouldn't be the top priority for me at the moment.
Well, we know who the top priority is from a fan verdict anyway. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Lewis says he's got a cracking shot on him. Maybe those drift into the middle and Lolley pegs it on the left foot. Perhaps one of them. I mean, if you can do better than that, fair enough. But those were the golden days, weren't they? Well, for Lolley anyway, not for Forest. That was heartbreak. But Nottingham Forest need to sell Jordan Smith. He says we've been linked with Jordan Larson. We have, and don't worry, I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Fulham are favourites for Yazici yet, but as we've seen before, you know, anything can happen. Obviously, I know Spence is going to Spurs, but you know, there was a time when talks broke down. We were then favourites, and then talks somehow unbroke down. Don't you just love it? So we've got people commenting. Gibbs White scored for Wolves in their game today. Do you reckon he's still leaving? On this one, I think it's a similar situation to Davis at Villa. Different, but similar in terms of the money side of it. I think Wolves have got to realise that as much as they want to get everything for him as they can, which I don't disagree with. Every club does it. Someone mentioned earlier, like 30 million. That is way too much for a player like Morgan Gibbs-White. Actually, in the Prem, although, you know, he's got some experience, isn't fully proven in the Prem. You know, 30 million is a lot to be thrown around, and potentially more in add-ons. So, Liam, I just want to know what your thoughts on that. And also, as I said, that Daniel Taylor has said that Cooper isn't after Yazici. So maybe a bit of a twist there on the stream. But different journalists saying different things. But Liam, I want to know your thoughts on
Gibbs-White.
Yeah. Specifically the valuation.
Ridiculous. He's not worth 30 million. I don't think he's worth 20 for a Premier League player. I'd go maybe in the region of 15 to 20 max. But you're paying that kind of money for someone that's proven Premier League. You could get a world class player for 30 million if you do the right business. So not 30 million, nowhere near. Well, he does bring speed. He'll be a big name in this club, so he'll be the poster boy for Forest. So.
Well, Real Madrid are asking for 20 million for Marco Asensio, and obviously I know massive wages come with that. But if I'm being completely honest, you know, if we were going to buy Morgan Gibbs-White for 30 million, you could just get Asensio for 20, and the 10 that you would have used
10 million on his wages.
On his wages, you know what I mean? But it's how sustainable a transfer like that would be, I don't really know. Not suggesting that I would want Marco Asensio, or that he'd come to Forest, you know. So yeah, it's a big price tag, 30 million, and more realistically, I think 25. Even then, and I'm in complete agreement with Liam, I think that's still too much. And I think 20 was a push for me already. Max, what do you think? Do you think 30 million's just completely out of bounds?
Yeah, 30. I kind of feel like you guys have said, like you probably could get something quite special for 30 million quid if you went in the right sort of direction. I think 20 to 25 would be the most I'd play for Gibbs-White, but even then, that would be like guarantee that he's going to come in and absolutely smash it, which obviously there isn't because he hasn't got that Premier League experience. I think it's really tough. I would really like to see him at the club, but you know.
I just think paying up to 25 million would show a bit of desperation to get a midfielder.
Yeah,
it is high money for someone that, like I said, isn't Premier League proven, really. Like,
But then if no one stumps up for him come the end of the summer, like say Everton and Palace, I think were linked to him. Like if no one comes in for him in the end, and Wolves are like desperate to sell, maybe they do lower it to like 17, 18 at the end of the summer if they're willing to get him off the books, and then you do have probably a bit of a better deal at that stage.
But what was Gallagher's worth before he went to Crystal Palace? Was it Gallagher?
Yeah, well, he had a great season at Palace.
That's what I mean.
And then, yeah.
What's his worth? I mean, he's proven now. But
equally,
Chelsea
it's
said they don't want him, didn't they?
I think he'd actually do quite well at Forest, because he does do a lot of that defensive work. Yeah, I think he'd be really good in that. Maybe a bit deep, played a bit deeper than Zinchenko would.
Yeah.
But the work he does in the midfield, I'd definitely stump up some cash for him.
But
or
equally,
for a loan if they wanted.
It's a gamble, though, isn't it? It's a gamble. And I don't think necessarily it's much of a gamble with Conor Gallagher for me, because he's got Prem experience. But 30 million juggling around for a player that isn't Prem experienced is 100% a gamble. And I don't think anybody can deny that. But people just saying here, just to remind you, we're paying 17 million we're paying 17 million for a right back, may I just add. And also we're paying 8 million for a left back. And let's talk about them both, because I've got slides for both of them. So once I get it working. So Nico Williams here, 121 appearances, 5 goals, 17 assists. Not that you're really looking too much at the goals part of it. Maybe a little bit of the assists if you're looking at how he's going to play in this side. But £17 million for a right back, or right wing back as he'll play. What are your thoughts generally on Nico Williams? Do you think he's worth the 17 million? For me, I think he's worth good money. I think 17 million is still a bit of a push. But I think he's going to live up to that investment. So, Max, what do you think?
I think the money, it's a lot of money, but at the same time, it's Liverpool, and like they got like 15 million for Minamino. Like they're just whatever they're doing in terms of what they're selling to these clubs, they're just getting like an extra 10% on it. And whether it's the fact that they're coming from Liverpool, I don't know. But yeah, as a player, I really like Nico Williams. I think as a player, like when you look at him on paper, I think he's a bit more well-rounded than Spence. I think Spence looked a bit one-dimensional last season, like especially if you're playing against a team who sit quite deep and we're sort of being given a lot of possession. There's not a lot Spence can do because he's not the most creative player through passing. He's wanting to sort of run on the ball, get the ball forward by sort of dribbling it. Whereas Williams is a bit more well-rounded. He can do that. He can pass. Defensively, he's a bit more solid. I think in general, he's probably a bit more well-rounded. And although it's quite limited what he did play for Liverpool, he does have a little bit of Premier League experience, which is more than what Spence has. So I think I'll choose Williams over Spence at this stage.
Liam, Williams or Spence? Straight out.
Williams. That connection with him and Brennan Johnson, there must be something in that for the club to push. I mean, I've seen on Twitter that the deal's is medicals tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
I think Fabrizio put something out, didn't he? Yeah,
medical tomorrow. Yeah, I like it. I like the thoughts of that partnership blossoming, and he was very good at Fulham, wasn't he? So, yeah, I like it. I'm not thinking about Spence anymore. It's a boring subject to me now.
We've got to move on, haven't we? You've got to move on at some point.
We're not going to outbid Tottenham. Tottenham are buying up players like mad. Unless it falls through big time with Tottenham, which I don't think it's going to.
Well, anything can happen, as we've seen from this transfer window, but I completely agree. And another team that's buying and is making some investments, and it's going to link to this question here, is Werder Bremen. As Warren, who rightfully says, Werder Bremen have reportedly bid £18 million for Berger. Would you like to see him at Forest? I think I would like to see him at Forest. I think he's got that. He's definitely got the physical presence. He's a big lad, isn't he? And I think he could do a job. And for 18 million, which could be potentially £12 million less than Morgan Gibbs-White, or potentially £2 million, you just don't know. Would you have Berger over Morgan Gibbs-White, or perhaps because you're going to need two midfielders, aren't you? Would you try and recreate that duo between them both?
I think they're two separate players, like two different players. I think Berger played in a deeper position I think it was at Genk before he went to Sheffield United, and Liverpool were like quite heavily linked to him when he went there in that January, which was weird. That then he went to Sheffield United, and I think they're two different players. I think Burge plays a bit better deeper, trying to move the ball forward, getting the tackles and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I think Morgan Gibbs White is better further up the pitch. So whilst there's similarities between the two, I think you're getting two quite different players if you're looking at both. But yeah, I would definitely sign him. I think he's quality.
So what do you think, Liam? Berger for 18 million, potentially rising to 20?
Yeah, I like him. But one player to throw another spanner in the mix, but he's not linked at all. But one player I wanted Forest to be linked with was Siri from Fulham. I know he got released, but was you at Craven Cottage when he played Forest?
No.
He was their best player on the pitch that day. He was everywhere. He created. That is someone I'd love to have at Forest. And he goes under the radar as well. Nobody spoke about him. He got released by Fulham, which I thought was crazy. He's so good in that middle of the park. But he got overshone by Carvalho, I think. So.
And he's obviously quite a difficult player to outshine, really, because obviously, a younger player, and he's now at, where is he at now? Is he at Liverpool now?
Yeah.
He's signed a deal to go to Liverpool.
But it's more the fact he's creative, and he did a lot for Fulham in the middle of the park. Like, it's crazy that they've released him, really. I mean, there must be something in it, but from what I saw, he was quality. Maybe
wages played a part in it, perhaps, because he was one of their star signings when they got them, wasn't he? So, lots of people commenting. We got Bartley or Ramsey for me. Maybe, yeah. I think Bartley could be a good one. I mean, a Ramsey return to the City ground would be interesting, wouldn't it? Would you take Martial? No way, because of the fact that he doesn't have the right attitude that Steve Cooper wants in the changing room. He doesn't have the right attitude that the club wants to preserve, and also I just think he's a bit lazy. And I mean, if you can't, and this is in no disrespect to him, but the team that he went to, I think he went to Sevilla. Was it Sevilla that he went to? I mean, Sevilla are a good team, and La Liga is also a good league. But if you can't do it in the Spanish league, you're 100% not going to be able to do it in the Premier League. Do I believe that Cooper could make him into a good player? Yeah, but nah, I'm not up for risking that, in my opinion. Especially if you wanted him.
Not with a wage bill.
No, not with the wage bill. And also, if he's going to be joining permanently, you can only imagine the eye-watering fee they're going to ask for. So it's not necessarily the transfer fee. It's as that's amortized over the length of the contracts. The wage bill is the problem. Yeah, wage has to play a big part in when you're looking at players now. Anything in the Che Adams link? I'm waiting on more confirmation on that from journalists, to be honest. I know that people have said Pirot and they've said Che Adams and they've said Jordan Larson, but I think we've got, as much as we're interested in hearing about it, I think we're just gonna have to wait a little bit more time to hear more about that.
Are you surprised that nothing's been said about Ramsey? Because with the Welsh links that we're getting him right now, and he's a free agent, and he's left Juventus now. I mean, the only factor that I could think about that is the wage bill again, but he'd bring so much experience.
And also, he's got some not allegiance, but he's got some connection to Forest, given his his previous time there. So maybe it'd be good to see him back, and he's got the experience.
He tore Derby County apart, didn't he, in that 5-2 game? So I'd love to that and Siri. No, they're two signings that I'd like to see happen. I mean, Siri's probably never going to happen because it's not even been spoke about, but
who knows? You don't know if Steve Cooper's listening to this whilst on a on a little deck chair. Come on, Steve, do us a favour. Hi, mate. How you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, nice to see you, my friend. Max, two midfielders you'd have realistic valuations as well. We're not playing like FIFA and you've just had a takeover. Sure. This is real.
I don't know if I'm being a bit cheeky on this one, but someone I've always been a big fan of is Florian Neuhaus out of Borussia Mönchengladbach. It's a bit of a weird shout, but like he was one of them players who was like linked to Liverpool for a really, really long time, was like for ages, and Gladbach have had like a really crap season this year. Didn't do too well. Chaos behind the scenes. He's had a few injuries, I think, as well, but he's only got a couple of years left on his deal. And Transfermarkt, I think, said he's probably worth about 15 million. So realistically, I think you could get him for 20, 25, and I think he'd do some decent bits for us. I think sitting in that midfield, he doesn't necessarily do the defensive work you want, but he's a really good progressor. He's got a goal threat in him. And I think if you've got maybe a midfield that could carry him a little bit, I think he could do a really good job there.
And obviously the German league seems to be one that Dane Murphy's looking at. I know that I think he had playing experience in Germany as well as the MLS as well, or an American league. So I've just had someone message me say that Seri has signed for Hull on a free. I don't know how true that is.
If that is true, that is some good business.
I'm going to have a quick look now because I don't know. Jean-Michael, is he really gone to Hull? Surely
with Biggs as well.
Wow. That'd be, I mean, great business by Hull. They've done really well. Now, as has just commented, Eid Mubarak to everybody celebrating. Absolutely. I hope you're enjoying the festivities. And remember, it's okay if you want to miss today's stream. That's okay. I understand why. I'll let you off for now. Have a fantastic day for everybody that is celebrating. Jordan Larson linked on a free. Yeah, he's a free agent because obviously with all the stuff going off in Ukraine, I know that certain players were allowed to leave, weren't they, without all the restraints on their contracts. I think they were allowed to leave Russia. So he'll be a free agent. I think if he's a free agent, I think maybe worth a shout. I don't know, perhaps so much. And as Dawes said here, Seri has gone to Hull. So Liam, your dream's not coming true, but I think Hull could potentially get. I'm
a bit upset.
I understand it. I think Hull could get, maybe higher up the table, not top 6, but higher up. And I've said it, and it might be controversial among Huddersfield fans, but I would say that Huddersfield could be in contention to go down this season. For me, I would say bottom half of the table though. But I would say I think there's somewhat a risk of them going down this season should they have to sell off all these major players, because obviously they bought out the club using the parachute payments, didn't they? The owners. So the money they've got to spend is limited, and they're going to be losing a few players. But Max, I can see you kind of, I don't know what to make of that reaction. What are you thinking?
So on Hull, yeah, I think they're doing something decent there. And I do think there's some decent young talent at the club as well. I think they're doing something really good there. On Huddersfield, they were so reliant on set pieces last season that if they lose Sobra Thomas and if they lose Lewis O'Brien, who was basically the guy winning all the set pieces for them, they were a great side and they were really fun to watch, but they were so one-dimensional sometimes that they were looking just to win set pieces sort of wide in the final third, try and get them into the box. Sobra Thomas, obviously, really good delivery. That I'm kind of like, yeah, because I've heard Corberon's going back to Leeds as an assistant manager, is what I saw. Because that's where he was before he went to Huddersfield. And they're in trouble if they lose him. They lose O'Brien, Thomas, and Toffolo as well. And obviously not getting Colwell back as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the situation with Thomas, I would say maybe a bit different. And maybe they'll get more money for him because I think he's just signed a new contract recently, hasn't he? I think I'm sure he signed a 4 or 5 year deal maybe a month or so ago. So more money to his valuation, or are they going to keep him? I don't know, but it looks financially, I think they're going to have a tough period, especially with having no parachute payment basically to use. Liam, thoughts on that? Do you think I'm being a bit harsh on Huddersfield there, or do you think that there's actually potential for them to be, in the bottom 5 or 6 of the Championship next season?
I'll be honest, I didn't watch Huddersfield last season, except for the games we played against them. And there wasn't really creative at all, was there? But onto the whole thing, I think the business with Figgs, getting him in, that's a good signing. I'm a bit gutted that he hasn't stayed at Forest, but I thought he left Forest because he was missing Portugal, and then he joined Hull. So
yeah, I think all this idea of, when people say why players are leaving, I think it's just a case of, people just making stuff up and it just spreads really quick and whatever seems to be the most believable. But perhaps maybe there was an element of him being homesick as well. and maybe he's just changed his mind, or maybe they've offered him a certain amount of money and he said, oh God, let's do it. I mean, I don't think you can really compare Lisbon to Hull, to be honest, but yeah, that's a weird. I don't know if you've ever been to Hull Stadium, but it's such a weird place. Nothing against Hull, by the way, because the people that work there and everything, it's awesome. But when I was there, it was like, the top half of our. It's great though, because when you're commentating there, it's like you don't have loads of people that are bashing against you and are putting the middle finger up at you or whatever for whatever reason. There was just nobody near us. Quite concerning, really. I don't really like the bowl aspect of it, but yeah, as a club though, they're doing some good transfer business. So yeah, fair play to Hull on that one, and they've got Seri. So sorry about that, Liam. Please don't cry. So we've got people just commenting here, and someone says, Zahir, will Omar Richards be a done deal? I would say so. Whether they do the announcement tomorrow, I don't know. I've said Monday because it's looking like he's going to have his medical tomorrow. Fabrizio Romano says that Forest and Bayern are closing on final details for Omar Richards. In fact, I've got the tweet here, so why not put it up? 10 million euros, fees talks at the final stages. Once details sorted out, Omar will undergo medicals and sign with Nottingham Forest. So it's looking like, he's going to come to the City ground. It's a case of when, and I think it could be Monday or Tuesday for me. So 8.8, I think it's like 8.82 million pounds for him as well. And he's got game time at Reading beforehand, I think it was, and he joined Bayern on a free. So, Liam, what are your thoughts on Omar Richards? Know much about him? Or, I mean, I think for 8.82 million pound, I think it's a good value for a good player.
I know he's quite good at Reading. I got this stat from you, Max. So the 500 minutes at Bayern. So, I think I'm going to be watching your YouTube for player profiles.
Thank you.
Shout out YouTube again. I mean, I couldn't do that. I couldn't reel off all them stats. I'd be in and ahhing everywhere. But it's a bit of good business. I mean, Bayern saw something in him to sign him. I think there's more to come. I think he'll be very good for us. I think they'll announce both at the same time. So William, right back and left back at the same time. Because is it Marianakis? I can't say it properly. Is that it?
Miltardis, isn't it? Yeah.
The junior, he said there's 2 signings incoming, didn't he? He tweeted the other day. So or it's the Huddersfield. It's the 2 from Huddersfield or the 2 left back and right back that's going to get announced at the same time. So,
well, I mean, obviously, medical's still not done yet, and Keith says here, there was some reputable journalists that were reporting. I think Akram Noor was saying, or Erkam Noor was mentioning that he was going to have his medical today. So we've got lots of good journalists saying when they're having medicals and stuff. But Fabrizio has said that it's not happened yet. Things still to be agreed on, but looks like it's going to be complete soon. So maybe I would say the announcement's going to be Monday for me at the quickest estimate. I just don't think they'll do it tomorrow. But then again, we said the same with Biancone. So anything can happen. Max, obviously, they're going to cost 25.82 between them ish. So do you think that's good value for 2 players of that standard?
Yeah, I would say so. Again, it's better than nothing. We didn't have, other than Iano, we don't have a left back, and we're pretty still on the ground on right backs as well. So I think anything's better than what we have at the moment. And I really like Omar Richards. I think he profiles well. He's defensively really, really solid. He's really good in possession. He gets the ball forward. The only question is he's not the best in the final third. But then I think if you've got someone as aggressive as Nico Williams playing at right wing back, I think you can afford to have someone a bit more conservative and a bit more disciplined in the left side, just offer a bit more balance to the side. So I think they'll work well together. I think they'll work really well together.
I mean, if any of you play Football Manager, I love to make this reference, but he's good on Football Manager for me. I think he was maybe he was like a B-rated signing for me to make. So I thought, I'll make him, and I actually signed him as Forest. So you can say what you want, everybody, but I did it first. You saw it here first. I did it first. Okay. So Steve Cooper's just asking me for advice on this one. Well, actually, we did get promoted. I won't talk about the Premier League season, but yeah, it was all right. We came back up a year after. So, but but anyway, that's a different story. Nottingham Forest need to sign free agents. There must be, yeah. But the thing is with free agents, and there is good free agents out there, and I agree. Some free agents, it'll be a wages thing, and as we say, wage budget is just as important as transfer budget. In this league. People like Dean Henderson are wanting over 100 grand a week. Unreal, especially for a team like Forest to even think we'd be paying players like that. I mean, Arta's probably on double that now, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, I think free agents we do need, and I think it's good to have. But there's got to be a wage concern there for me, for some of them anyway. But I do want to talk about Dean Henderson now because as mentioned in the tweet, just this one in the bottom. Sorry if it's a little bit small. I can see you having to look in it a bit, Max. Manchester United. He's got. Oh, I completely get it. So as I said, Manchester United wanting Strakosha. I think he's a keeper from Italy. And what does this mean next season for Henderson? Obviously, if Strakosha is coming in as number 2, or potentially coming in as number 1 if De Gea leaves. I think either of those situations is completely unbeneficial to Henderson because in his mind, he'll be wanting to get number 1 next season if De Gea leaves. And next season, he'll be wanting to, get first team football. But if Strakosha is going to come in as number 2 or go to number 1 and Henderson becomes number 2 again, I don't actually see any situation where that benefits him and he stays at United. So I want to know your two's thoughts on that, because I think if Strakosha does come in, I think Forest potentially could get Dean Henderson on a permanent. Max, I can see you're in deep thought, so I'm going to ask Liam first. I'll let you think for a minute. Liam, what do you think about that? So should Man United sign this keeper, Dean Henderson? Either way, not looking like he's going to get first team game time.
I'm not talking in the way of Man United signing him here. I'm talking if we sign him. So Dean Henderson, if he has a good season at Forest, so I think that determines his Man United career. Really, I don't mean he's going to go back to United if he has a good season here. I think if he has a good season at Forest and he's a fan favourite and he does everything he's got to do, I think that would determine him staying. If he has a subpar standard performance all season, I think it's all determined on how he plays with us. I don't think a United career will be something he's thinking about right now. He'd be looking to the World Cup, and he's a professional at the end of the day, and he's at the top aspect of being a football professional. He's in the top 10 clubs in the world, and I think that'll be his mentality going forwards. I don't think he'll be thinking about Manchester United right now.
I think he's just thinking, game time, and obviously, a decent amount of money on the way as well, along the way in his career. So we're approaching like the last 10 minutes-ish of the stream. I've got work in the morning, so I'm not going to make it too late. But Max, I do want to ask for your opinion on that. Do you think Strakosha could put a bit of a spanner in the works for Henderson's career at United, or what do you think?
I think Liam made a really good point there about the World Cup. Like, realistically, Everton are a mess, so Pickford's not guaranteed a good season. Nick Pope's going to Newcastle, and we don't really know what's happening there. Like, realistically, he could be going as like England's first choice keeper if he puts up a good 6 months at Forest. And you kind of look at it like, as far as he's concerned, if that's where he wants to be, like he's going to be working his backside off to get as good performances as he can. And so I think that's beneficial to us. In terms of Strakosha, he's coming on a free, and I think the idea there is that he's a ball-playing goalkeeper. He's good with the ball at his feet. So if De Gea's not as good as everybody, like if he continues to be quite bad on the ball, which he is, then at least there's an option there who can come in and sort of play closer to what Ten Hag wants to play. And he's 27, isn't he, Strakosha, as well? So it's not like, in terms of goalkeepers, he's still probably got like another 8 years left on him. So yeah, I think I think Liam's right. Like a good performance this season. Hopefully, looking to get number one at the World Cup, and potentially that could lead to him coming to us on permanent. And I would be open to that because I think he's a quality keeper.
Well, only time will tell, I suppose. And you've got another 12 months of his loan, and there is lots to play for. And I think surviving in the Premier League is the main aim. Anything else is a bonus, as people have rightly said. And yeah, as Fonzie said here, wait and see how Henderson gets on. We might not want him next year. Potentially,
Exactly.
I think the likelihood is we will. If I was to place bets, I think we would. But equally, we can't be making that assumption now because it hasn't happened yet. So reports say that we're in for that keeper too. I doubt it. I do doubt that, to be honest, because I think probably getting in a keeper like Hennessy would make more sense. Bit more experience, yes, a little bit older, but he's got that Welsh connection as well. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Now, just having a look through some of these comments. As says, if Henderson is subpar, we'll be relegated. Well, let's hope we don't have to use him too much and that the defence do a lot to stop any of that. Eve says, I've enjoyed tonight's live stream. I'm really glad. I know some people are leaving. It's nearly 9 o'clock, so we're going to cap it off in around 4 or 5 minutes. So kind of one of the final things that I want to ask you is strikers. And this is going to be our last talking point. Is there particularly a striker or two that you would have at the City Ground, realistic valuations and budgets, etc.? Who would you have, Max? I'm going to start with you. Who would you have at the City Ground?
I saw the Che Adams link, can't even say his name. I think he'd be a good backup. I think he's obviously used to playing in a front two. Defensively, he's a really good striker, which sounds really weird, but he's a good defensive forward. He's a facilitator, and the way he presses in Southampton's system is not necessarily similar to Forest, but you can see it really working, and the similarities in the style of play. So I think he'd be a good backup option. And to be fair, is it Jordan Larson who we were linked to? I think he'd be fine. I think he'd be an absolutely fine backup. 15 goals 2 seasons ago. Didn't do so well this season, but with obviously what's going on in Russia, it's pretty understandable. So, that would probably be the two names that we're linked with. I'd be pretty happy seeing either of them as a backup to Awoniyi.
Liam, what do you think? Strikers you've got your eyes on?
Those two you just mentioned, but I like Danny Ings as well. He's a proven goal scorer. He's a free, isn't he, right now as well? I don't know if he's been snapped up, but that's another one where the wage budget might not sign a player, but he's a proven goal scorer. That we need, like I keep saying, we need a consistency now. We're in the Premier League now. We're not Championship. It's not the time to be trying new things. We need some consistency now. And that's a player I would look at to be a goal scorer for us. I think it'd suit Forest play.
So some solid thoughts there. And as Nick said, he is the son of Henrik Larsson, Celtic legend, and I'm a Celtic fan, so I like a bit of that. And Sahil says here, how many more players do you think we will bring in? I'm going to say 2 midfielders, potentially, Colwell. So, I mean, if we are including the 2 that are about to come in but aren't confirmed, so you're still thinking really Williams and Richards. I'd say 2 midfielders, a striker. So I'd say 5 players. What do you think about that? I'd say 5 players for me.
Is that including Richards and?
That's including.
I'd say about 5 or 6, including Hennessy as well, coming in as backup goalkeeper as well.
Yeah,
I'd say 5, 6, maybe 7 at the most.
Yeah, the two defenders. I'd say 2 more midfielders, and then I think we'll bring in a striker, another striker.
It'll be interesting to see who they bring in as well, obviously, because I can't imagine they'll be spending anywhere near 20 million on another striker. I think probably around 7 to 10 million they'd be looking at. Perhaps a good striker, but not someone that's going to break the bank kind of thing. Not that Awoniyi did break the bank, but you know what I mean? It's a good striker that's just not ridiculously priced. So people commenting, great streaming guests. Thank you very much. Max, Liam, you've been great. We're about done in a moment, so I'll be saying goodbye soon. Great show, lads, says Forest Down. Thank you very much. There's been 120 of you in at one point, so it's great to have you all here. Just remember, please, if you can subscribe, then that would be great, because I love doing these streams. I've been doing it as much as I can. It is taking a toll on me, sleep-wise. So a subscribe would be appreciated. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to do a steak for every time you subscribe, but I might get a minute. I might get a minute extra sleep for every time you subscribe. So if you can just literally click that big red button and help the channel, that'd be great. And also subscribe to Stanhope's Away Days and also Max Goodwin as well. He does awesome stuff, and he's at 1,000 now. So I'm envious. I'm jealous. Yeah, I want the 1,000 as well. Worry. I do hope so.
Deserved, though. It is deserved. Yours is a different type of context to what I'm doing. Mine's more opinion based. Yours is stats based, which is very good in my eyes. And people will look to your channel about player stats, in my eyes, anyway.
And that's important. That's important, because I'm always looking for, if I'm going on the internet or if I'm going on YouTube, I'll just go to you now and I'll look at what players. Yeah, I know this is true, because if I want to know more about a player, instead of just going on the internet and looking at some numbers, you can look at you speaking about it. The quality on your camera, as I've said, I love it. Looks really professional. So, yeah, I don't know if I think it would make me bankrupt if I wanted to shell out on the camera, I must admit. But it's worth it, worth the investment. So yeah, do subscribe to these two guys if you can. They've been absolutely awesome guests, and I appreciate all of your comments. And it was great to see, Steve Cooper saying we'll sign plenty more players, relieving as well. Davis deadline day, I reckon so as well. Che Adams, Joe doesn't think that's what we need, but as we said, there's other options out there as well. But from us, I've got to answer this question. If you could have one former Forest player for this season, who would it be? I mean, for me, every season it's Collymore, isn't it? As Forest Ant says, it's Collymore.
Roy Keane.
Yeah, Roy Keane. Are we talking Sky Sports Roy Keane, or are we talking Football Days Roy Keane?
Not sure there, actually.
That's all I'm thinking. I mean, imagine a big Roy Keane versus Graham Souness battle. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah, I want to see that happen. I suppose we won't see it again. Or a Patrick Vieira, or, Haaland as well. That was a devastating tackle that was on Haaland. But guys, it's been great having you. I know some of you are dropping out, so amazing to have done this stream, as I say, with Max and Liam. We're going to be back soon, I think Monday, because I'm going to try and take a rest tomorrow because I've got work and other things to do. But other than that, it's been great to have you all. Do get in contact, and remember, if you are commenting after the stream and it's not live anymore, I will come and answer your question either way. So that'd be great to have you comment after. So thank you all very much for listening, guys. It's 9 o'clock. I'm tired. I need some takeaway food. And I'm joined by two great guests. So thank you all very much. Have a great night.